So because my network is not too good, I might switch off my camera from time to time. So just in case you cannot see me, just sorry. So as Chooks has already said, my name is Enodi, and I'll be explaining how to set up Webpack. So first of all, let's just go straight to the point. What is Webpack? Webpack is a module bundler. Most times when you just check their sites and they just explain Webpack is a module bundler, but actually what is that module bundler? So please, I can see you smiling. Anyway, so a module bundle, what Webpack does is it's kind of wraps so all your modules in your application into one file, all your JS files, it wraps them into one single file so that you can be able to, you won't have so many files on your, or you won't have to import so many files in, let's say, your index.html. So let me share my screen to explain that more. So I'm going to create index.html file, a simple HTML file. And so, for example, you have your script file. And since you're going to be using React, let me just use React here. And React DOM. And maybe some other file. App.js and another file, main.js. So what Webpack does is, instead of you having so many files or so many scripts in your entry file, it helps you to bundle or wrap all these scripts that you're importing into one single, maybe bundle.js file, and you can use that to run your entire application. One major advantage of this, it helps you to organize your code. So instead of having, of course, if you keep on having so many scripts in one file, your file will not really look very organized, and it will not look clean. Let me use the word clean. So one major advantage of that is it helps you, how will I explain it now? Let me see. In order for your file, let me gather my thoughts. One minute. So okay, due to the fact that it's in one file, right? All your files will not have to run. I mean, one file will just run at a time. Unlike when you have so many files, that so many files have to run whenever your page, or whenever your, let's say this index.html file loads, all these script files will have to load one after the other. But if you just have one single JS file, all your files will run at once. So it prevents you from having a very slow application. So let's get right into setting up Webpack. So we're going to be using Webpack 4. So let me install, first of all, let me initialize the project. And I'll install Webpack, excuse me, and Webpack CLI. So because we are using Webpack 4, you have to install the CLI. Unlike when we are using Webpack 3, installing Webpack, it's fine, but the CLI is used along with the npm package Webpack. So if I'm too fast, so just stop me. I know sometimes I talk fast. So just in case you are not hearing me or I'm too fast, please stop me. So it's still installing. So the good thing about Webpack 4 is that you do not need to have a webpack.config file, except you want to change the default settings. What I'm trying to say is with Webpack 4, you can just have your entry file, set your entry file, and boom, it runs. Unlike Webpack 3, that you had to have a webpack.config file, set your entry file, and the outputs. Webpack 4 does that for you out of the box. So I'm going to have a script to enable me run Webpack. And npm start. So you will notice that I'm getting an error which says cannot resolve this file. So what Webpack looks for a folder called source, that's src. So in that source, it also looks for a default file called index.js. So since it's not finding it, it's throwing an error. Of course, like there's no entry file, there's no file for it to read from. So I'm going to create a folder, my roots directory, and a file inside that folder called index.js. So I'll just log something. Hello cohort. What cohort is this? Anybody? What cohort?
44.
Okay, 44. Thank you. Okay, hello cohort 44. So I'm going to run it again. Remember, my script is this. So I'm going to run npm start. So you'll notice that a dist folder has been created for us. And inside that dist, you have your main.js file. So also, you also notice that, excuse me, that in the main.js, the file has been minified. So most times you don't really understand what is going on. It's because Webpack has, shall I say, the two modes, production modes and development mode. So if you notice here, we still get a warning saying the mode option has not been set. So it is because we haven't set any mode. And by default, if you do not set any mode, default mode that Webpack gives is production. And definitely you want your production file to be as minified as possible. That is why it is very minified. So Webpack helps us to minify the file. So in order to set this to development mode, because currently we're working in development mode, so you specify the mode as development. So let me just change this to dev. And I'll create another script, start production, and set the mode to production. So let me run it again. Run start dev. So you will notice that the error message or the warning message is no longer here. And if you check your main.js, you see it's no longer minified because we're actually using the development mode. Hold on one sec. Okay. All right, thanks. Can you see my screen? Okay, fine. So I'm just scrolling down for us to see that it actually bundled WhatOS. So if you check here, you see console.log hello cohort 40. Yeah. So I remember that I said we do not need the webpack.config file. But what happens when you want to, shall I say, make your own setup? You want to set up yourself. Like you do not want to use Webpack default settings. So you will have to install you have to create a webpack.config file. So let me just create a webpack.config file. .config.js in our root directory. So I will want to become a module.export equal to, I'll set an entry. So I want to change my entry file to something else. So by default, as I said, Webpack looks for, in the source directory, a file called index.js. So I want to actually change it to app.js because I like app.js. So I'm going to rename it and main is source app.js and the output. So I also want to specify a different folder from the one that Webpack automatically creates, which is this. So I want to specify a different public folder. So the paths will be this. So it will create a new folder called public, and inside public, it creates a folder called this. Just a second. So in order not to get too confused, I will take the questions after this section, please. Yeah. So if you have questions after this section, I will answer them. So file name. So I want to change the file name from the default main.js to bundle.js. So I'm going to delete this. Yeah, and run my script again. Okay. Okay, I did not import. Yeah. So I'm using path and I did not import it. So So you notice a folder called public has been created for us, and inside public we have a this folder, and inside this we have bundle.js, which is the same as what we had before. So moving on, okay, what if you have ES6 files and you want to transpile them to ES5? So if you notice, let me just create an ES6 function. And I run it again. So you notice that the function is still in ES6. And of course, there are some browsers that do not understand ES6. So we should be able to transpile it to ES5 so that the browsers can understand, read them, understand them. So to do that, we'll be using Babel Loader, which Webpack provides to actually transpile to ES5. And of course, we'll have to install some of Babel packages. So I'm going to be installing Babel core. And the @ symbol just means is a scoped package. Babel presets env and Babel loader. Oh, okay. I forgot to put the install. So while it's still installing, okay, it's done. Then we have to create a .babel file, .babel rc file. Then the presets that we installed, which is this. Yeah, because we're going to be using it. So in our Babel, in our webpack.config, we have to tell Babel that any file that has a particular extension, which is JS extension, it should look at the file and transpile it. So to do that, we have to specify it in module. The rules, then test.js, then it should use the Babel loader. Yep. Yeah. So let me run it again. Okay. So we should see a transpiled or an ES5 function in our bundle.js file. So you can see in our bundle.js file, it has transpiled it. Function add, yeah, to ES5. So we are going to be, you guys are building a React application, of course. So what then happens when you want to transpile or you want to build a React application that, of course, the browser does not understand. So let me just quickly create a JSX main.jsx. I'm going to install React and React DOM because we're going to be using that. Install React DOM. Okay, so import React from React and import React DOM from React DOM. So create a simple component, main app. Let me just write a text. Hello again, cohorts 44. All right. So I'm going to import this file inside app.js. So, okay, I did not even export it. But before exporting it, I'll have to render it. Let me render it. React DOM.render this component. Documents.get elements by ID app. There's no ID or a div called app. I've not done that yet, but let me just keep that here for the meantime. So export default main app. So I'm going to import that here. Import main app. Hope that's the name. Let me see. Okay, import main.jsx. Let me just rename it. Okay. So let's run it again. So you notice that it's saying you need an appropriate loader to handle this. That is, it doesn't understand this JSX. So in order to do that, we have to tell Webpack that wherever it sees JS or JSX, it should transpile it. So, or JSX. So let's run it again. So let's see what's happening. Min app. For some reasons, I cannot still figure out what. Okay, I think I've seen it. Okay. Main app from, yeah. If anybody can tell me why, because I've not still figured out why this is failing. I'm not seeing it.
Line 6.
Line 6 in what file?
That should be main, yes, this place, this particular place. Line 6, that they were saying that is a syntax error. That's to do with the open this, we open this. I think probably should be say the unexpected token.
Try changing the div to just normal paragraph tag. Let's see if that works.
Okay. Still the same thing.
Don't we need to put, we don't need to put render, right?
No, you don't.
Okay.
Let me show this. Yeah, it was.
Enodi, please, can you put a semicolon after the bracket that closes the return?
It shouldn't after this.
Yes.
No. Okay. I do not want to think it's because I did not exclude node modules. But let me see. Okay.
So for Babel,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how. I know that
Oh,
they
thank
changed a
you.
lot of
Yes,
things
I
to
just
Babel.
remembered.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Supposed
Yeah,
to ask.
thank you. So the issue is because there's a preset that Babel has that transpiles, of course, JSX to ES5, which I did not install. Yeah. So let me be sure. Yeah, I did not install it. So npm install Babel presets React.
Enodi, please,
Yeah.
how about NPM watch? So probably to limit how much you use NPM run start every time.
So I don't get. I'm actually installing some packages.
NPM watch. No, yeah, I understand. I'm talking about NPM watch. So you have to be typing NPM run start every time. Just keep updating the changes automatically.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. So in bava.rc, let me do this. All right. So you see, it has actually, what's the word? That has actually transpiled the JSX to ES5. Yeah. So okay, we are done with JS. We have done with JSX. So what about HTML? Maybe you want to process your HTML files. So to do that, right? There's some packages that Webpack makes available to us, which is HTML Webpack plugin and HTML loader. So we are going to be installing those packages also. Yeah, so Webpack plugin and HTML loader. Okay. Then in our webpack.config, we have to specify that whatever Webpack sees HTML, it has to use that particular loader to load it. Let me use the word load it. So the same .html, then it should use HTML loader. Then also the HTML Webpack plugin that we installed. Let me just go to Webpack and Webpack documentation and look at it. Let's look at it together. So the HTML Webpack plugin simplifies creation of HTML files. But the main reason why I opened this page is for us to see, you can either let the plugin generate HTML files for you, which is what we want HTML Webpack plugin to do. We want it to generate the HTML file for us inside our dist folder. So we are going to be importing it, excuse me, HTML Webpack. 1 second, please. Let me just read this message. Okay, HTML Webpack plugin. And we have to import the plugin. So in our plugins, we have to specify it's new. So the template means what we want it to read from. That is like the entry point. So I haven't created any HTML file, but I'm going to create one inside source. index.html. So this is the file that we want it to actually read. So we're going to specify source HTML. Then the file name, which is what we want to call it in this folder, index.html. So let's just create a dummy file. And remember, in our main app, we created, we told it to render this component inside inside this div with the ID app. So that is why we created a div with an ID of app. So running it again. So you notice in the public folder, in our dist folder, we have an index.html. So if you, and you also notice that it's inserted the bundle.js file inside the HTML file for us. So if, let me just copy the path. So you notice, you'll see the text, which is hello again, quote 44. Yeah. So that's all for HTML. So there are also sometimes that we will want to load CSS files. So Webpack also provides some plugins for us to do that. And some of the plugins that we can use is mini CSS plugin. So let me just go back to Webpack to show you guys what mini CSS extract plugin does. So this plugin extracts CSS into separate file. So whenever you create a CSS, for example, you create a CSS file in the source file, in the source folder, it then creates, it extracts that CSS file and creates a new CSS file inside this folder, and also imports the CSS in the the index.html for us to use it. So we are going to also be using a loader called CSS loader. So let's install that. npm install mini CSS extracts plugin. Yeah. Plugin and CSS loader. So, of course, we have to set that up in webpack.config. So the file that we are going to be testing is any file with the extension that ends with CSS. And it's going to use, so the mini CSS extract has a way of implementing it. So before we were just using the loader, but with the mini CSS extract plugin, we have to specify it also here. So if you look in their documentation, this is how it was used. So you have to, let me just copy this and specify the loader, CSS loader. Okay, I did not even import it. So const mini CSS extract plugin, okay, require, and of course it's a plugin, so you have to specify it here. So, excuse me, you specify the file name, So let me call my own style.css, which is the name I want it to take in the dist folder. So I'll just create a file called style.css and style the body. I'll give it a background of, okay, let me use this. Save it, and we run Webpack again. So, okay, yep, I did not import my style here. So we will import, import style. I don't know why my autocomplete is not working. .css. So you can see it in the dist folder, style.css. So we can also reload to see that it's working. So you can see your background color is this color, whatever the name of the color is. So also, to answer Peace's question concerning adding watch, Webpack has, let me call it a plugin, which is Webpack Dev Server, that allows you to keep running instead of always running the script, as she said. So let's install npm install Webpack Dev Server. So why is still loading? So let's wait for it to install.
Please, Enodi, can I see the webpack.config file?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let me explain. Okay, should I hold on?
Yeah, please just scroll up a bit in the file.
Okay.
Just what did we use to remember? There was a time that we were trying to load the JSX and it was throwing an error. So you said we had to install something.
Okay, we had to install a preset, which is Babel React preset.
Okay, I have installed that, but it's still isn't. When I try to run my Webpack, it still throws that error for me. After installing the, is there any further configuration after installing preset?
Did you configure, like, did you put it in your babel.rc file?
Oh, okay, I think that's where, okay, I didn't do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let me come again with the CSS part. I will just explain it because I don't know, someone is having an issue, but I will just explain it from the beginning. So if you want to load CSS files, first of all, you have to install this plugin, which is Mini CSS Extract plugin. So then someone saying something?
Oh, my mic, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Then you specify the CSS parts, which is every file ending with CSS.css, Webpack should run them. Then you have to specify this plugin and the CSS loader that will load all CSS files, and also specify the path, the file name. So I wanted my own name to be style.css. So I specified the file name as style.css. So I don't know if that is clear. Is there any question? Okay, I'll take that as no question. So I installed Webpack Dev Server, so which is this here. Then instead of always running your Webpack, always running this script, you just specify it, change it to webpack dev server and run it again. So you'll notice any change. So let me change this to hello world. Whenever you make a change, it reloads. And if you go to localhost.8080, which web dev server, should I say, provides for us, the default ports that Webpack provides for us, you will see it's hello world. Yeah. So that will be all. I'll start taking questions if you have any questions. I think someone posted it. Just a second. Someone posted a question. So yes, to set the mode in Webpack, right, you can use node environment equals to development. But as I said before, right, Webpack has already helped, or with Webpack 4, you do not really necessarily have to do that, because most times why people did that in Webpack 3 and below, it's because they wanted a way to minify their should I say their bundle.js, that their final JS file. But with Webpack, just specifying the mode will automatically bundle it for you. You can still specify the environment, definitely. It depends on what you are doing. But as much as possible, you should try to avoid installing plugins that you do not actually know what they do. Just crowds your Webpack, and it's not simple. You don't really understand what is happening. You just copied. Maybe you went online and just saw a Webpack file and just copy it. But as much as possible, try to understand what that plugin is doing before you do. Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Yeah, I wanted to ask for more JS files and more CS files we'll be creating. Must we create them inside the SRC folder?
So, sorry, let me share my screen. So you're saying for more CSS files that you want to create?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should create it inside the SRC file. Normally, right, of course, you will have a folder called maybe styles and a folder called components. This is how your SRC file will be. So yes, you will create it inside your SRC folder. Yeah.
Okay, and then every time we create CSS files in those styles folder, Webpack will know to just get everything and put them into the style.css.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other question? Questions? So it's either my talk was super exciting or nobody understood it. So which one?
So yeah, so Enodi, we have another question.
Okay.
So how do we set this up to work with the SAS? Yeah, with SAS files.
So that's a actually very good question. So let me share my screen. So I remember I said, because we're using CSS, right, we have to use CSS loader so that Webpack can load it. There are other loaders that Webpack help us to load, like you said SAS. So you can actually install that loader, which is, if I had that loader installed, I would be like SAS.loader. Then I will either specify, because I want it to load either CSS or SCSS, I then do something like this. So automatically Webpack will load it. So if you want, you can create a style or a main.scss inside here. Webpack will see it and read it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So when you write it, to auto load into a CSS file, right?
Yeah. So when we write it, will auto load into a CSS file.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question? Please, you keep smiling. Question.
Enodi, my question is not now, but I do feel like I'll have more questions in the future. So I wanted to find out if we could Slack you if you have any question.
Yeah, sure, you can. Always, you can. My Slack handle is Kalisi.
It's what?
Kalisi.
Kalisi. Thank you.
All right. With no other question, I think our session will be over. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Enodi. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.